Hi there, this is David at Bodyworks again. Today we're going to talk about longer fascial chain attachments to the shoulders, right? Shoulder pain is super common with a lot of clients, and if you feel like you're rubbing here and rubbing around here over and over and the client feels better, then feels worse, then feels better, then feels worse, working on some longer chain stuff down to the pelvis, including lats, including the side body fascia, including obliques, is going to really change how you think about shoulders, and it's going to make your clients very happy. So let's get to it. So here we have a client face down and prone. And if I undrape down to his pelvic crest and hang his arms off the sides of the table, right? A lot of us think about working on shoulder as this area in here and maybe in here, but there are several long chain connections that come all the way down. The lats are a giant muscle that basically goes from here, mid-back, and all the way down to the sacrum, up and through into the front of the humerus. And so that's a direct muscle connection, not even just a fascial connection. But there's also oblique fascia that comes up and weaves into shoulder muscles themselves. And then in the front, there's also obliques there. And so now, the lats, which I can basically grab with a palm right here, come again from the entire lumbar region. Without getting too specific, you can just think of it starting there, up and through the lateral edge of the shoulder blade, the scapula, and weave around to the front and attach at the front of the humerus in the bicipital groove. So that's one simple, long chain connection all the way from the pelvis to the shoulder. All right, so one way that we can work on the lats and again open up those long fascial chains from the pelvis to the shoulder is to hang the arm all the way off the front of the table. Some clients won't quite feel comfortable being there, and that's a really good indication that they should be getting this work. And then as I'm working up through the lats, I'm going to have Christopher gently extend further towards the floor. Doesn't have to be a big deal, just a nice light extension. And then I'm going to have him make little circles on the floor with his fingers, trying to roll those circles from the humerus rolling in the socket. And you can switch directions anytime. And as you get up to the lateral edge of the shoulder blade, it's going to get even gunkier in there for him. And let that go. Okay, so that's the first easy movement that you can have a client do. There's also ways for you to passively do that. So I can grab this fascia and pull up here, and I can lean over here and passively make circles with his arm. This is a little bit tougher on your own body mechanics. But if you've got a client that you want to relax a little bit more, it allows them to chill out a little bit and have you do the work for them. Both are very effective. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do all the same lengthening up through the lats, but this time I'm going to have you extend lightly towards the floor and then very slowly try to extend the arm above you. All right, nice and slow. Good, take a break. And as I'm doing this opening work, I should see the elbow start opening and lightening up so that he can fully extend and that his arm hangs more and more comfortably straight down in gravity towards the floor, which I am seeing with him. So then I'm just going to give him a little break, give a little rock and bring that back up there and give it a little shake. All right, so there's one long fascial chain on the posterior side of the body. There's another spiral line. Tom Myers talks about these fascial lines, where from starting at the ASIS through internal obliques, then external obliques, around through serratus anterior, which passes through the shoulder blade into rhomboids, and then comes up to the mastoid process through splenius capitis. That entire spiral line, which is a Tom Myers term, and if you haven't read Tom Myers' Anatomy Trains, I highly recommend it. Links for that book will be in the description below because that's like a Bible to me. That whole line is a power line. So let's say I'm doing any kind of a throwing motion. That entire chain of muscles fires in one long line to turn the body, right? And that whole thing, because it passes right through the shoulder blade between serratus anterior and rhomboids, is absolutely going to affect the shoulder girdle position on the body. And so I'm going to show how to draw that entire line fascially on a prone client to help loosen up the shoulder girdle. For most people, the most important one of these is actually going to be the opposite side of what I'm showing right now. I'm showing this side because it's easier on camera. But for most people, because most people are right-handed, you're going to want to be on that side of the table doing left ASIS to right shoulder. But I'm going to show the opposite just because this is where the cameras are set. All right, so you'll see in the top view, I'm basically going to slide down underneath. So the way that I can get all the way to the other side of his body, even though he's lying down on the sheets, is I'm going to take one hand and slide it under the body as far as it will go without pushing hard. And then I'm going to slide my other hand underneath that hand. And then I'm going to keep sliding like this until I get all the way over there to the ASIS. And so, and with some people, you may find that the sheet gets in the way and you have to pull it. But there we go. I've now slid all the way and I'm underneath. He's resting. He didn't need to lift his body or put any effort into it. And I've got my fingertips curled and right on his left ASIS. And now I'm just going to make sure that I get the other hand there. And I'm going to draw that hand across. Again, I'm not putting a lot of upward pressure into his viscera. It's just a little hook and then pulling the fascia along the body to his right lower rib cage. His left on this side. Okay, so that drew all of the obliques. Now I can take that hand and I can draw up through serratus anterior, which comes into the shoulder blade. So I've now drawn a very long fascial connection between his opposite hip and his shoulder. And then, last but not least, I can cross up here, come through rhomboids, and switch sides, and open up splenius capitis a little bit. And so again, we're going along a spiral that comes all the way up to the head. And that is going to help open up that shoulder. I'm going to go ahead and do that on his other side, partly because this is really the side that he needs. So again, I'm taking those hands and I'm sliding my hand underneath my hand so that I can get at his opposite side ASIS. And then I'm curling my fingers and I'm gonna slowly draw my entire body. I'm not using bicep here, I'm not using my shoulder muscles, I'm leaning my whole body back to draw that fascia up through his internal obliques, then external obliques to his opposite low ribs. And then, kneeling on the floor, I can bring the palm of my hand up into serratus anterior and draw that up towards the spine. So hopefully I'm taking the shoulder blade medially towards the spine with that. And then I can press into that foot and lift myself into standing quite easily without losing pressure or contact. And come across through rhomboids. And last but not least, switching sides for splenius capitis. All right. And again, I've drawn that long chain that affects where the shoulder is starting at the pelvis. So we talked about the lats and we talked about the spiral line. Those are more chains of muscles. Now, talking about the entire side body, there really isn't a set of muscles that work in one line. There's more just a long set of fascia that will tug on the shoulder girdle and potentially on the shoulder joint as well. The lat was just a long muscle that connects pelvis to shoulder. The spiral line is a set of muscles that all work together in a fascial chain that connects pelvis to shoulder. This is more just a set of fascia that connects the pelvis to the shoulder, and it passes through different muscles, but those muscles are not necessarily all moving in the same direction. And in fact, some of those, like serratus, will move in a different direction. But it's important and very helpful to think about opening up the sides of the body as well. And in fact, in the Rolfing series, the side body is a big part of the work that they do, and they will do that within the first 3 sessions. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start at the pelvic crest, and I'm going to work my way up, and we can work in varying angles. And while I'm doing that, Christopher is going to extend his arm and try to take the rib cage up along with his arm away from the pelvis. So I'm not really thinking about specific muscles here. I mean, yes, I am running through obliques. Yes, I am passing over serratus, but I'm really more thinking about the surface fascia above all of that. And again, I can run all the way through the lateral edge of the shoulder blade and then let him take a short little break. And in general, I'm going to ask a client to do that 2 to 3 times, sometimes 4 to 5, and pick slightly different lines on his body, on their body. And you want to think about asking the client to breathe even into the space that you're working on. Take a break. We'll do that again. Breathe right into my hand here. And breathe out. Good. Take a break. And so that's another way that you can connect the shoulder and the pelvis. And again, to get the shoulder to actually release, sometimes working much farther away from right there is going to make a much bigger difference than just rubbing right into the shoulder. That being said, if I ask him to go ahead and extend again, in this position, I do have really easy access to the lateral edge of the shoulder blade and the glenoid fossa. So I can very easily do really good direct work right here. But the point of this video is pointing out that it's not enough to just work here. I really want to make that lengthen all the way through the entire torso. Great. Take a break. We also can access the spiral line here and run through the obliques. And so if, for instance, like most right-handed people, his right shoulder might be a little bit more curled in, I can actually come here to his ASIS and ask him to very slowly lift your arm up and away from here in a diagonal. Yeah, and kind of pick any direction. And fascially, I'm now drawing that same spiral line that we did in prone through obliques from left ASIS to right lower ribs. And you can see as I start to open up here that his range of motion all the way to his fingertips starts to open up a little bit more. It starts to get a little easier for him to reach. And then I can come all the way around and work down through serratus here. I'm using a soft fist to do this, but you could use fingers here, you could use thumb if you wanted to make it even more pointed. I'm just going to use a soft fist. And again, with all of this myofascial work, I'm contacting the tissue, sinking ever so slightly into it, and then skating along that plane, not pushing straight into his body. My pressure is actually down and along the curve of his ribs. That's it. There we go. And see, even as I start to open this up, his fingers are moving from where they could go here to that direction more and more. His elbows opening up. Nice. Now, in prone, we were able to then take that serratus through rhomboids, through the other side to splenus capitis. That's a little more difficult here to get at rhomboids. You certainly can, but to actually draw them in that direction gets a little bit more difficult. But again, we get to make that long chain, and if you open up all the way, the shoulder range of motion will be much more improved. For today, when we talked about long chain connections, we were trying to open up the shoulders by starting at the pelvis and opening all the way up through varying lines to the shoulders. However, that could easily work in reverse. There could be shoulder restrictions that show up as hip issues, and your clients with low back pain and hip pain may benefit from opening these same sets of chains in the shoulder and thinking about how the shoulder relates to the opposite hip or the same hip. So it can go in both directions. So that's two major sort of things that a lot of your clients will come in and complain about that interrelate to each other, and that you can work one to have the other change and vice versa. What are some other long chain connections throughout the body that you might connect, such as how the ankle movement might restrict the hip or the knee? Think about that. Write any ideas you have in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And if you liked some of these techniques, especially the shoulder stuff, we have a great 2-day live workshop here in New York City that gets far more in depth in opening up the shoulder, distinguishing the shoulder blade and the shoulder girdle from the shoulder joint, and really gives you a lot of tools to really help your shoulder pain clients, especially for post-shoulder surgery. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for updates. And if you like this video, we think you'll really like this video.